Question today is seeing that there are a good amount of religions that follow a similar pattern on how they address the following points. That is pertaining to the Bible. They don't believe in the Trinity. They say the Bible has been corrupted, and obviously you answered today that Jesus Christ has resurrected, but a lot of them believe him as being only a prophet. And maybe pertaining specifically to Mormonism, what would be your best argument on why the Trinity is a biblical view compared to the Mormon belief in a plurality of gods and the concept of exaltation? And in your view, are Mormons a Christian denomination? Thank you. I know that is a pretty heavy
I think
question.
we're out of time. What do you guys think?
Hey kids, how you doing? Today we're going to talk about gatekeeping, status signaling, and how often you're going to see it in life. And it's going to be disguised as other things. It starts in school on the playground. It continues on as you play youth sports, you get into dating. It goes off the rails in academics, continues on in the job field, especially in the arts. Oh, brutal. Religious gatekeeping, however, is a different category. It fascinates me. It's one of the biggest takeaways for me in the Old to New Testament transition. The gatekeepers put the gate maker to death in his name. And they would again today. Religious bullying might be the only kind of bullying that is still fashionable in modern society. The rest of them we've tried to purge out or call them by different names while it still goes on. So I want to give you an example of this today with award-winning author Frank Turek and show you how often doctrinal disputes are status games in disguise.
But do your best to answer that.
First of all, as I understand Mormonism, Mormonism is not monotheistic, it's polytheistic.
Polytheistic is a scary word. Ooh, if you're a creedal Christian or sectarian, you just don't use the P word, all right? But it's worth pointing out here, if you're in the scriptures and you pay attention to what Christ said, he mentioned that his Father was greater than he. Christ referred to his Father as a separate entity. I think between John 14 and 16, he mentioned him almost 50 separate times. So if you believe in a Father and a Son, technically that makes you a polytheist.
I see.
There are many gods, and as man is, God once was. And Mormons believe that a faithful Mormon man will one day become a god of his own planet. Now, if I got that wrong, let me know, but that's as I understand Mormonism. Now,
That's false. Sorry, kids, that's not true. I think he knows it's not. I don't think he's serious about people correcting him because he seems to be pretty convinced of what he thinks, and he didn't leave his phone number. But that's not a doctrine. However, I have some thoughts on the planet thing. They're not for this video. We'll do it some other time. It's weird if you think Jesus Christ created a billion planets in our galaxy and a billion galaxies just like it, if you don't have at least a theory for what those planets are all for. None whatsoever. Just like crazy to think that those could serve some purpose down the road besides just being looked at through a telescope. No, can't happen. Got to gatekeep that.
doesn't mean every Mormon believes this. Just like every Baptist might not believe the theology that the Baptist Church officially believes.
This is a really slick move, right? This is a lawyer move. I'm sure there's a name for it. I don't know what it is, kids, but this is when you say, look, this is something crazy enough that if you talk to one of them, they might not believe it, but there's a lot of them that do and some that don't. So it promotes disunity, says, look, they're not really in harmony in terms of their beliefs because their beliefs are crazy. How could they be? But also hides the fact a lot of them don't believe it because it's not true, because he's being dishonest.
But Mormons are not monotheists, they're polytheists. Now, the Trinity is not polytheistic. It's three persons in one divine essence. All right? And that actually solves problems for me rather than creates problems.
That's convenient.
Because if you have a lover, a loved one, and a spirit of love in the Godhead, then you can have love from all eternity. You don't need to create anything. God is love from the very beginning.
Now, keep in mind, he was asked the best argument on why the Trinity is a biblical view. But as often happens, they don't get biblical answers. They get what Thomas Sowell refers to as answers that sound good. And that certainly did sound good.
Mormons are not a Christian denomination in a traditional sense because they're polytheistic, and of course Christianity is monotheistic. And secondly, Christianity is a worldview that believes in grace as the means to salvation, whereas Mormons believe you get grace and then you got to do more good work.
And if there's anything Jesus hated his disciples doing, it was good works. Oh, that irritated him. Hated it. Do not do those. If you're an evangelical and you're listening, stop the good works and see what happens.
All right, so, and there are many other differences, but no, they would not be a traditional denomination like, say, Baptists or Lutherans or Presbyterians, because they have a completely different Godhead.
Much clearer picture of the same Godhead. Much more elevated perspective and vision and understanding of the Godhead. So for those of you keeping score at home, better understanding of the Godhead, polytheists, and the flash pictures of missionaries and temples. Missionaries, 80,000 around the world, preparing the world for Christ's return is predicted in the Bible, and temples which every covenant people of God has been commanded to build and utilize since the beginning of recorded time in Judeo-Christianity. Way to flex. Yeah, we're not like the other denominations because they don't have that stuff. And more importantly, Frank left this out, surprisingly, they couldn't replicate it if they tried.
And you can, look this kind of stuff up. In fact, we have a course, an online course called Conversations with the Faith, and we have an expert that teaches people about Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Islam. So if you want to go further in that, his name is Brady Blevins. If you go to crossexamine.org, click on online courses, you could see it there.
What was that course again?
It's called Conversations with the Faiths.
Okay.
And now we get back to the point of all this, which is gatekeeping and status signaling. Kids, you're not really old enough to know the answer to this yet, but let's say you were at some kind of convention or committee and a Board of Education official from the federal government was asked on stage if charter schools are as good as government schools. The answer is not going to be, well, you know what, that's a great question. Here's what we can do. We'll apply the scientific method. We will ascertain, based on the results of the time spent in that school, which kids are better prepared for life outside the school, which is one of the missions of schooling. No, that will never happen. And anyone listening who's a red-pilled, red-blooded American knows, as a matter of fact, they will do whatever they can to get you to not investigate the results of their approach. You will have to trust them that their charter and their government licensing program and the credentials that their teachers have are going to guarantee that your students are in a better place than any of those charter schools. So that example that I gave you about the federal official, it has a like-minded fellow traveler in Frank Turek, but also in the book of John, when the Pharisees were having a heck of a time with Jesus. He was kicking their butt all over the place. And so when he started talking about the relationship he has between he and his father, they couldn't handle it anymore. The gatekeeping wasn't enough. They had to silence him. It says, then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. And Jesus answered them, many good works have I showed you. From who? From my Father. Polytheism. Jesus believed in a different God. It's weird. For which of those works do you stone me? And the Jews answered him, saying, for a good work we stone thee not, which was good, because you can't stone someone for good works. You can verbally stone people and condemn them and disqualify them from being real Christians, but you can't actually kill them for it, unless they're Joseph Smith. He also got killed for it. Anyway, because thou being a man makest thyself God. This man who'd been born into mortality, who had grown in wisdom and stature, who had served God with all his heart, might, mind, and strength, and honored his mother and father, who became one of the greatest servants of our Heavenly Father on earth, and then died and was resurrected, was showing us a pattern of exaltation, which he himself undertook at the command of his Father. And that he specified to them, saying, is it not written in your law, I said, you're all gods. You are gods. Say ye of him whom the Father hath sanctified and sent into the world, thou blasphemous, because I said I am the Son of God? If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. But if I do, though you believe not me, believe the works. He was telling the Pharisees, the works tell you who I am. And here you have modern evangelicals telling people to stop doing works. Do you see the problem with this message? Do you see the problem with disqualifying people who are doing things you're unwilling or unable to do in God's name, and then selling a course on how to ill-prepare other people to go out and have conversations with them about how they're going to hell for doing so? This is not good. In the words of Jesus Christ, ye worship you know not what. Kids, do not be fooled by stuff like this. This is not good. They don't know what they're doing, and they're experts with their theology and divinity school degrees. Going back on, what did he say? Their tradition. Well, the Jews had a tradition too. And we could say of these people, like Frank and his friends, well-meaning as they are, believing as they are. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Kids, I love you. Talk to you soon.
This is the way.